Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are now in the month of Elul as we prepare for the high holidays. And the theme of this entire month is Teshuvah, returning to God. And on Rosh Hashanah, our rabbis tell us, that is the day that we coronate God as the King of the world. And then 10 days later, we observe Yom Kippur, the day that we ask for forgiveness. And one of the famous questions is, why is it that the Jewish New Year begins on Rosh Hashanah and it's only 10 days later on Yom Kippur that we ask for forgiveness? Shouldn't we begin the year by asking for forgiveness and then start the new year 10 days later? And actually this is reflected in our daily prayers. Every day we have a prayer where we say, Hashivenu Avinu L'Soresecha, God, return us to your Torah and bring us nearer to you, to your service. V'karvenu Malkeinu, our King, bring us nearer to your service. And right after that we say, God, Slach Lonu Avinu, forgive us, our Father, because we have sinned. Shouldn't we first ask for forgiveness for sinning and then ask God to draw us nearer and closer to Him as the King? And the answer is that a king is typically thought of someone who is imposing, someone who causes dread and fear and rules with an iron fist and subjugates his people to his will for his own needs and his own desires and his own self-aggrandizement and power. But not so God, the King of all kings. You know, it's interesting that the whole world is mourning the passing of Queen Elizabeth. And what Queen Elizabeth showed us all is what monarchy is all about, what a king or a queen are all about. They're not about the people serving them, but it's about their service, their devotion, their concern for the commonwealth, for the people, for the nation. She was a queen who reigned for 70 years, and her reign was all about selfless devotion till the very last minute. She was serving her people, spreading love and goodness and kindness for the betterment of her nation. And now we understand what it means to coronate God as a king. As the world will watch the coronation of King Charles, we the Jewish people will be coronating God over the next few weeks, especially on Rosh Hashanah with the blowing of the shofar. What we're saying is, God, there's no greater good for us than to be close to you. Therefore, Teshuvah, we want to return to you and get closer to you. And then we ask for forgiveness. We're not asking for forgiveness because we're afraid of judgment. We're asking for forgiveness because our motive is to get closer to the King of all kings, who wants nothing more than the betterment of mankind, of his people, his nation, and the world. And therefore our motivation is to coronate God as the King, because the King, for the best interest of his nation, God wants what is good for each and every one of us. Queen Elizabeth was a very dear and close friend of the Jewish community. She knighted many rabbis, had very close relationships with the Jewish community, had a deep respect for the Jewish people and our traditions and our heritage. And there's a beautiful story told by Rabbi Marvin Heyer, who of course is the director of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, that he was once invited to Buckingham Palace for a very prestigious dinner with a lot of leaders and religious figures. And he said, I would love to come, but I must have kosher food. I only eat kosher. And they said, no problem, we'll arrange a kosher meal in Buckingham Palace. And sure enough, they served him the first course. And of course, part of the laws of kosher is that the dishes and the silverware has to be kosher, so they gave him a kosher set of dishes and silverware. After the first course, the queen announces that she would like everyone in the room at the dinner to get to know each other. So for the second course, everyone should please get up and move to another table so the crowd can mingle. Well, Rabbi Heyer had a dilemma because he needed his kosher utensils. So he picked up his silverware and his plates, and he started to walk to another table. Well, there was another Jew at his table, another Jewish leader who was not observant of the laws of kosher. And he was a little embarrassed by the rabbi walking around in Buckingham Palace carrying his dishes. So he said, Rabbi, do you really need to carry your dishes? Isn't it okay if you just leave your dishes and use another set of dishes? Rabbi Heyer said, no, it's important. It's part of the laws of kosher. Well, suddenly, Prince Philip walks over to Rabbi Heyer and says, Rabbi, you don't need to take your dishes. We have dishes at the next table for you. You just have to move to another seat. And there Rabbi Heyer started to explain to Prince Philip the laws of kosher, and he eats kosher, and the dishes have to be kosher as well. Prince was fascinated by this, so he called over the Queen Elizabeth, his wife, and said, honey, listen to this. And they started to talk about kosher and Judaism and the Bible and Jewish traditions. Well, this other Jew was standing on the sidelines. He wanted to get in on the conversation, so he came over and started to, listen in. And then at one point, he says to the queen, Your Majesty, I'm also Jewish. And Queen Elizabeth looked at him and said, well, if you're Jewish, where are your dishes? She was proud to be a friend of the Jewish community. And we honor her, remember her, and may her memory always be a blessing. Have a wonderful Shabbat.